Hi, I'm DuEwa Frazier, and you're listening to episode 15 of my podcast, Nerdacity Podcast. And today my guest is the award-winning author, writer, and editor, Dr. Tony Medina. Tony Medina is the author-editor of now 21 books for adults and young readers. Medina has taught English at Long Island's University's Brooklyn campus and Borough of Manhattan Community College, CUNY, and has earned an MA and PhD in English from Binghamton University, SUNY. The first professor of creative writing at Howard University, shout out to the Bisons, in Washington, D.C. But Medina's latest books are, and I'm going to amend this, he has a forthcoming book coming out this year titled Death with Occasional Smiling, from Indolent Books, and that will be a poetry collection. Medina also released in just a couple of years ago a wonderful book titled 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy. And 3 years ago, he released I Am Alfonso Jones, a wonderful graphic novel. And Tony's other books include I and I, Bob Marley, My Old Man Was Always on the Lam, a finalist for the Paterson Poetry Prize, Broke on Ice, An Onion of Wars, The President Looks Like Me, and Broke Baroque. Featured in the documentary Sheer Good Fortune celebrating Toni Morrison, Medina was awarded both the Langston Hughes Society Award and the first African Voices Literary Award. Medina was recently featured in an interview on the Brown Bookshelf for Black History Month 21 Days campaign and in Little Paterson Review's social justice issue. His fiction and poetry have recently been featured in anthologies 44 on 44, African American Writers on the Election of Barack Obama, 44th President of the United States, edited by Lita Hooper, Sonia Sanchez, and Michael Samanga. The 2010 NAACP Award winner in poetry, the 100 Best African American Poems, edited by Nikki Giovanni and the Beltway Poetry Quarterly. Medina's listed of published works include DeShawn Day's Bum Rush the Page, a Deaf Poetry Jam, Love to Langston, Roll Call, a generational anthology of social and political Black literature and art, Committed to Breathing, and follow-up letters to Santa from kids who never got a response. He's also featured in the documentaries New York, 1999, A Way with Words, an inside look at how words create conflict or compassion, and Furious Flower 2, Regenerating the Black Poetic Tradition, Roots, First Fruits, Cross-Pollination in the Diaspora, Blooming in the Whirlwind. Medina's poetry, fiction, essays, and book reviews appear in over hundreds of publications and 2 CD compilations. He is an advisory editor for Hip Hop Speaks to Children, edited by Nikki Giovanni. And one of his recent works is featured in the anthologies Poets Against the Killing Field, Family Pictures, Poems, and Photographs Celebrating Our Loved Ones, Fingernails Across a Chalkboard, a literary and artistic view of HIV/AIDS affecting people of color, Full Moon on K Street, Let Loose on the World, Celebrating Amiri Baraka at 75, and Spaces Between Us, Poetry, Prose, and Art on HIV/AIDS. I hope you enjoy this interview, and thanks for listening. Hello, Tony. How are you?
How are you, Dr. Frazier?
Thank you. I'm well, Dr. Medina. Thanks so much for joining me on the podcast today, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy Kwanzaa, all that.
Exactly. So, I want to congratulate you on your forthcoming book, Death with Occasional Smiling.
Isn't that special?
It is special. And I love the title. I mean, it just gives you a, oomph.
The thing is about that title, I was working on this publication for like about 5 years, 6 years. So that title just coincided with the whole pandemic thing, So
Yes, because we're only barely smiling, probably not at all during this period. But, kudos to you that you are churning out some heavy books right now during this time. And this will be a poetry collection. Am I correct?
Yes, it has mainly poetry. Yeah, has a couple of short fictional pieces, but mostly poetry. Yes.
And so, what are the themes that you're working with this new collection?
Ooh, the themes. Let's see. I am dealing with. It's a lot of satire in it. Interestingly enough, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Political stuff. There's this whole Trump suite where I'm just like jabbing him up. I'm dealing with I guess homelessness. It's so many things, everything basically. They're poems that deal with black comics in a sense, like superheroes, but what I call the originals.
Sure, of course.
Who are black folks and stuff like that. It deals with a lot of Black Lives Matter type poems of mine that I've been writing throughout the decades, basically, but more of the newer ones,
Yeah. And so,
go ahead.
Sorry. And so, would you say this collection is like what you've been observing and thinking about these recent years? We've been dealing with a lot of social justice issues, a lot of inequalities, and different really tragic moments in our history. Would you say that your collection is reflecting some of that?
It reflects some of that. Most of my work always reflects that for some reason, even my children's books and young adult books. But this is an adult title, Death with Occasional Smiling. And I have a poem as recent as, dealing with George Floyd's death, and a couple of pieces that deal as recent as the pandemic.
Wow. And that's in this new collection that's coming out.
Yes, it's a new collection. What the pandemic allowed me to do during the spring and the summer was to really work on it and shape it. It's very different than what I started out, what I thought it was going to be, but it's very, very sharp. With the help of my editor and others, I was able to really shape this into probably one of my strongest collections.
Wow. And so in some way, would you say, and just talking with other writers about, how has the pandemic impacted your writing? Would you say that the pandemic has really kind of given you that space, that even that headspace to really focus on your writing in a different way?
Well, it just because of the enormity of the pandemic and the anxiety that it has just gone through all of us, and the fact that we were in this weird, bizarre, dystopian reality, wearing masks and shopping with masks on and all this social distancing and being on lockdown and teaching remotely and not having that much physical contact with our friends and family members.
Right.
It just forces you to, especially artists, it forces us writers and artists to kind of do what we do. We need that time to focus and stuff like that. So I wrote a lot of stuff responding to it. I mean, we spent a lot of time on social media, and that was a lot of time responding to the political happenings of the day. And so that kind of like inspired a lot of the work. Some of which didn't even make it in this collection, mind you.
Well, do you think that it'll be a whole nother collection? Might we get a collection of, Tony Medina essays about this time period?
You never know. I mean, I've been doing a lot of stuff on social media, and I've been thinking maybe I should take my social media stuff and
I'm telling you,
cull together some stuff and shape it into a piece.
Time to copy all of that. You got a whole, compilation right there. Part 1, 2, and 3.
Because just because you post on social media, that doesn't mean that you're not writing. That is writing as well, you know.
Wow. And I think that's something that a lot of us forget, you know, the whole thing about what do they call that? Like a
Flash
flash.
fiction.
Right. And so, okay, this isn't flash fiction, but in a way it's like, you know, the way we tweet with just so many characters. I mean, it can still become, you know, there are people who have gotten book deals from tweeting, you know.
Well, you know, there's
Just
Instagram poets, you know. The thing is that you have to in order for you not to worry yourself about social media so much as a writer or artist and thinking, oh my God, it's so distracting. Use it as a tool for writing. You know, it's like, you know, think of it as journaling in a sense, you know.
wow. I love that. And that's really going to be a great tidbit for a lot of people who listen to this, Tony, you know, because I think you're really you're a model for, okay, as a writer, as an artist, how to stay productive. And would you say that you are you are motivated not so much by, you know, external things going on, but what you have to say about those things that are going on? You know what I'm
Well, I
saying?
think it's one of those, it's a tango, you know, it's a dance of two people or
Mm-hmm.
two entities. So you have the external forces, right? And external stimuli. And then you have your own internal processing of information. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Uh which harbors a combination of your own experiences coupled with your learning, coupled with how you see the world, how you respond to things. And sometimes it may be in humorous terms, because you know, you may take something that's very serious and find the humor in it just so that we could deal with this type of reality that we're under, you know. So I just think as artists that we need to not beat ourselves over the head so much. We need to say, you know what? Our written expression can take so many different forms. We can even create a new form, which is the stuff that we write on social media.
Wow. Totally. I mean, people have turned blogs into books as well, you know.
Yeah, it's all valid
Um,
to me.
mhm. Because it's expression. And so, Tony, you mentioned, you know, as we're talking about this time period, I love how your recent books for young readers, you have really been geared toward, to me, the boy subject, the thinking about Black boys. And, you know, I think about, you know, as a former K-12 teacher working with middle grade boys who love graphic novels and wanted more books where they could kind of see themselves reflected. So can you talk a little bit about your graphic novel, I Am Alfonso Jones, and what was your inspiration behind that?
Well, of course, the inspiration behind that was the police brutality incidents that have been, you know, springing up almost every month practically for like 5+ years.
Right.
And wanting to say something about it beyond, you know, Facebook and Twitter, you know, and beyond talking on the phone with my friends and being angry and writing poems and stuff. So it just became this, you know, I just had the opportunity to be able to tell a story graphically, you know, in a graphic novel format, which I just I just love this format, you know. I
Yeah.
had to teach myself how to do it, but it was just I came up with this idea about a composite character named I Am, you know, Alfonso Jones, a Black Puerto
Mm-hmm.
Rican 16-year-old kid who was born in the Bronx but raised in Harlem, and whose father is doing, you know, whose father's been behind bars for the total extent of his life, basically,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
on a charge of, as a cab driver, he was charged with murdering and raping one of his passengers. But it
Mm.
just so happens that he's getting exonerated, and he's getting on DNA. He was exonerated, and he's getting out of prison. And so Alfonso, who goes to this advanced school in Harlem for high achieving academic kids and creative
Mm-hmm.
kids, called Henry Dumas School of the Arts. Shout out to
Mm.
Henry Dumas.
I'm telling you, there we go.
Harlem Academy, Henry Durant School of the Arts. And he has a secret crush named Donetta, his best friend and his secret crush. And so he finds out through his mother that his father's getting out, and he's so excited. He wants to get buy his first suit to be there for his father's release. And so he asked Donetta to accompany him because she's a girl and she probably has better taste than he would, right?
Right.
And so they go out there, and in the process of leaving the safe confines of his Harlem hood, they go to this mid-Manhattan store called Marksman's. And in the process of him, putting on suit jackets and stuff like that, and he's holding up a hanger, this white Karen type, Becky type, she freaks out because she sees this other guy, a white guy actually, lifting up a BB gun and whatever. And she runs to somebody and says, "Oh, this guy's like, has a gun and stuff like that." So the security guard, who happens to be also a cop, a police officer, he mistakes Alfonso for the dude, and he gets shot up. And this happens in the first 20 pages, so I'm not giving anything away. And so Alfonso is literally like shot up and killed and yanked out of his life. And so we see the story through his eyes as he tells the story in the form of a spirit of a ghost. And so this book has so much in it because his mother is Puerto Rican, so she practices Santeria. His father grew up with, Christianity. His father is a famous liberation activist and stuff like that in Harlem. You know what I mean? So you have all this stuff blending together. He's very talented. He's into jazz and rapping and stuff like that. And he's also involved in putting on a production of a hip hop production of Hamlet with his schoolmates and stuff like that. And so, if you know anything about Hamlet, it's a ghost story, which Am Alfonso Jones in part is a ghost story. And Hamlet is trying to avenge the death of his father. And his father comes to him in a dream as a ghost. And he says, "Hey, this is who did it." You know what I mean?
Are you serious?
Yes. King Hamlet was killed by his wife and his brother. And so Prince Hamlet, who's the main character of Hamlet, is going through all this stuff. And his father comes to him, not in a dream, but he comes to him as a ghost.
As a ghost, right. Wow.
So there's a parallel between that and Am Alfonso Jones, and they're doing Hamlet in school.
Wow. In the book, they're doing Hamlet in school.
Alfonso was trying out for the part of Hamlet, Prince Hamlet, right? Because that's the main character. Right. And he was, him and his boy Punky, that's his friendly rival, were trying to get the same part. But Punky's more talented, so he got the part of Hamlet. So guess who got the part of King Hamlet? Alfonso. King Hamlet is the one who's dead.
Wow. The irony. So would you say that this is an ideal writing format or genre to reach the middle grade high school reader, especially to, kind of reveal topics like this with social justice, parent incarceration? These are some heavy topics.
It is. I mean, I can only go by the facts and how teachers and librarians are constantly tweeting. And most times they don't even tweet to me. I just see it because they mention my name and whatever on Twitter. And they're just saying, "I can't keep this book on the shelf."
Wow.
And, it's just so popular and kids really get into it. Adults get into it too. But yeah, they get really emotionally involved. I mean, the cover is very emotional. It's an image of Donetta, his friend and crush who witnessed the killing, and she's in tears,
right? And she's
crying. She holds up an image of him, But I just got to say that the the illustrations were done by Stacy Robinson and John Jennings. It has a foreword by Brian Stevenson. You know, it's heavy.
Wow. It's a beautiful cover, I can tell you that. I mean, it really catches the eye. I love the gripping, the character Donetta gripping the photograph. You can see the emotion, and then you see the protesters in the background with the signs. I'm like, wow, this looks like right now, like the time we're living in. And as you mentioned, so much of this has been going on for several years, and this is still quite relatable.
It is,
you know, because heck, this could have just been yesterday.
I have to also mention that Damian Duffy did the lettering, and he's the one who adapted Octavia Butler's Kindred.
Oh wow, for a graphic novel.
And John Jennings
did the artwork. That.
And Stacy Whitman was our editor and our publisher for 2 books. But yeah, I mean, I was able to get my ideas out, you know what I mean, and also tell this story, and it's very interesting. It has a lot of spirituality in it, in terms of all these spirits and ancestors are coming to Alfonso Jones, who's in this weird, you know, purgatory-like state, trying to seek justice. Yeah. And he comes upon all these other folks that were killed by the police, did not receive justice.
So what has been, I know you mentioned that librarians and teachers contact you. Have you heard from teen readers about this book?
Oh, my God. Yeah, feedback? Because I've gone to classrooms. I've done big Zoom presentations to them, and they get all caught up in the story, you know, of Alfonso Jones and his classmates, because there's a lot of scenes with the classmates trying to grapple with race and class and police brutality issues and stuff like that. And they too get activated and take to the streets and things of that nature. So they have a lot of questions. They can relate to the kids in the story. And it's just been a positive response. They always like, they want to know if there's going to be another one. you know when they like it, when they want more, you know.
They want more. I mean, you know, here, hey, the trilogy, Tony, bring it. You know, you could do Danetta's story. What does Donetta do after that?
Actually, I am working on that.
Oh wow!
Which is not a sequel, but it's going to be a spin-off, basically. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But yeah, Donetta is like kind of like Rachel. Remember the girl from Trayvon Martin?
She was like the
friend that was on the phone with him when he was getting killed and stuff.
That's right.
So Donetta, in a sense, is like that she witnessed it. You know what I mean? So she's dealing with a lot. You know, a lot of pressures on her shoulders and stuff like that.
And Tony, have you thought about, and perhaps you have, or you've been approached, you know, the graphic novel to me is like it's like the TV show in print. It's film, you know, for the eyes or whatever. So, you know, do you foresee this being, you know, working with a producer?
From the beginning, it's been kind of from the beginning. We've been approached for that, you know, like Hollywood has been knocking on the door. So hopefully something is going to happen.
I pray that it happens, because, you know, we need this. We need more diverse stories. We need the depictions that are true and relatable to us. And kids.
And the thing about this is about, I mean, his schoolmates are all multicultural and stuff like that, you know, but it's predominantly, it's a Black world, you know.
Yeah.
You have Santeria, which is, you know, from the Yoruba tradition. You have Christianity, which is, you know, the revolutionary liberation theology approach to it. You have activism. I mean, his funeral takes place at the Apollo Theater. You know?
Yeah.
And you have the the thing about the ancestors, you have, it's like everything in the kitchen sink in telling the story. You have people bearing witness, and this is what it is about. It's Alfonso Jones bearing witness, but these other people are testifying, as they say.
And did you work in some of your poetry in this particular book?
Yes, and I'll, if you want me to hook up, I could hook you up with a poem in here.
Hook me up. Let's go.
Okay, let's see. Well, this is the scene where the students, they find out that they're not going to just do the regular, traditional, of course, William Shakespeare Hamlet, but they're going to do a more improvised hip-hop version of Hamlet. And so Alfonso and Punk E, who's also known as Pedro Delgado, they just spill out into the hallway after the bell rings, and they just improvising, you know what I mean? To be or not to hip-hop, to be or not to hip-hop. Are you noble? Will I scold you if you took my life and caused strife? What is a life? What is a lie? When your dis-ease causes another to die. Blow, blow, making them toast, making them ghosts, making them host their own to be or not. And then when Donetta and Alfonso are on their way to Marksman's department store in Midtown Manhattan, because they're on, there's snow and they have a snow day, they start improvising lines from Shakespeare's Hamlet, where she's Ophelia and he's Hamlet. And there's a scene in in Shakespeare where it says, "Get ye to a nunnery," right?
Yes,
get thee to a nunnery.
That's
because she was kind of like losing it, because she was getting all mad because Hamlet was like wishy-washy and not really, committing and stuff like that, and it was driving her nuts.
Right.
So he's like, "Get ye to a nunnery." In this one, Alfonso as Hamlet is saying, join the choir. So here it goes. "Ophelia, I feel you, but you don't want to mess with me. My heart is lazy. My head is crazy for what my moms did to my pops. I don't know why you tripping, ham hock. You not the only one my heart clocks. It's not that, baby love. I just don't want you to get burnt by the fire of my desire. You need to join the choir, love." Hambo, have you heard? I'm hip to your lame games and trifling ways. So if you can't be my love host, you best be like your pops, ghost.
I thought you were going to say step up.
And you see all that foreshadowing that takes place.
I love that. And you know what? That was hip hop. I'm sorry, but all we need to do is throw some hot beats behind that, and you got some hot bars, Tony. Exactly. That's all we need is, to get these. Wow, you got a whole little. You know how Hamilton did the. They did a recording. They had a hot album that went along with the. I never
actually saw Hamlet. Hamilton.
Are you serious?
But I gotta check it out though. I gotta check it out.
Tony, you would have loved it. You can probably get it on cable now. They put it on Disney. You would love it. It's hip hop. It's poetry. A lot of movement. Multicultural cast. But, you would love it. Go
ahead. What you gonna say?
But anyway, it makes me think about you having a soundtrack for Alfonso Jones, but you're going to do something with film and they'll do all of that. I hope you get all the best people, Questlove, whoever you want.
He's great. And he, I like Questlove because he's an intellectual, he's a music intellectual.
He would get you and you get him. That's why I said Questlove. He's a nerd. He's a nerd like us.
I wanted to do one more scene for you, if you don't mind, if there's time.
Please do. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I almost wish that we were doing a video thing of this. This would be phenomenal. But I just think
it's important to get the mother in. This is
Okay.
chapter 35, Born to Trauma. And this is Cynthia Carmona, Alfonso's mother. And she's talking to the media. He was my miracle boy, the one who almost didn't make it. Every time he left the house, I prayed. You don't know what a mother goes through. Dreamt I ripped the cop's eyes out, screamed and swung and scratched at his face, and woke in a sweat screaming, "What have you done? What have you done? What have you done to my beautiful baby boy?" I'm not going to let you turn my son's death into a reality show episode every few weeks, every so many months. Another black body at the hands of white police, black police, any old police. Here you come again, trying to parade us around TV to cry on cue, cry out for a justice we never get. We're not going to let you make a circus of our pain. Our black misery is not for your white amusement. Why do you think I fought to get my son into Henry Dumas? Because it was a school that was created from grassroots organizing and did not depend upon a curriculum that excluded his reality. Had that damn security guard cop, Officer Whitson, went to a school whose books reflected a broader reality than his narrow lily white mind, had movies, TV, whatever reflected that, maybe he would have seen my son as a teenager, as a person, as a citizen, as an American, as a human. And that's something to be so easily, so rapidly, so wistfully disposed of. His girlfriend said he shot my baby like a deer, like a deer. And all he was doing was buying his first suit. All he was doing was trying on a damn suit. I guess you got what you wanted.
Woo! I have to give you snaps for that, Tony, because I could feel that. That was like emotional, riveting. And that was
his mother. That's his mother
right?
talking.
And I hear the voice of every mother who's ever lost her son, especially in unfortunate tragedies.
Can you imagine
like
what they go through?
And we've had a lot of them. And then these women, some of them, one of them, I can't remember if it's been Trayvon's mother. One of them went and ran for office.
It was the sister. Trayvon's mother was running for office, but there's another woman whose son was killed, not by a cop, but an angry white mofo at a gas station who didn't like the loud music or whatever. And her mother is a congresswoman right now. I forget from what state. I think is it Georgia?
I can't imagine the strength to then turn that into something where you are doing greater works to help other people and make sure that that doesn't happen. Can you imagine
the resilience? And that's in the tradition, basically, you know.
Wow, Tony, that was fantastic. And you have done, I mean, wow, I can only imagine the impact and reach for readers, teachers, parents, librarians. This is definitely a must-read book. And I'm also tweeting about this as well to let people know, hey, you are reading live, you're sharing your work, and this is coming up. And then, you know, we want to get more into, I want to talk about 13
Well,
ways,
before you do that, let me just say one last thing about the
I
Am Alfonso Jones book and the phenomenon, that over the summer it was, it became a Barnes and Noble's bestseller on the graphic novels bestseller list.
As in this summer,
2020,
like
yeah,
2020?
that just passed. And if our publisher had more of a commercial distribution outlet where the New York Times would calculate it, it would be a New York Times bestseller. Because it's gone into its like sixth or seventh or eighth printing by now. And it came out October 2017.
That's crazy. So this is 3 years in, and it was a bestseller as of this summer, which was three years
Barnes and Noble
after it
graphic
was
novel
published.
bestseller among some of the most popular, even Watchmen. It was right right in front of Watchmen and stuff like that, you know.
Wow. That's amazing, Tony. Well,
Thank you. I think a lot of
congratulations
that
on
had to
that.
do with
And
the whole
it will
George Floyd murder by the police over there in Minneapolis. And then, you know, when everybody took to the streets in the middle of this pandemic, and then, you know, it seemed like a lot of white folks, a lot of white liberals and a lot of teachers and librarians and stuff, they were scrambling to get material to kind of educate their young people, you know, about race and racism and police brutality and all that stuff. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing, Tony. Well, you know, we'll definitely have to keep that going for you, with everybody picking this book up. And I'm definitely going to continue to promote this, you know, with the book covers.
Yeah, it's
and
meant
all of
for
that.
all ages, but, you know, if you want young people to engage it, I think from 12 on up, it's good, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And with the whole visual aspect, I mean, it's something, even if a young person is not really into reading lengthy books and things like that, because this has the whole vivid imagery component to it, you know,
But that's another thing that people have to realize, that when you engage in a graphic novel, comic book, or whatever, you are you're literally dealing with two forms of narrative simultaneously, as if on parallel tracks, two trains running. One is the textual narrative, right? The words, the literary stuff. And the other one is the visual narration. And so the mind has to work just as hard as if you were reading a traditional novel, because you have to kind of like decipher and figure out what's happening in the artwork as well as the writing. That's what people don't realize. You know, they're quick, you know, in the past they were quick to dismiss graphic novels or graphic narratives or comic books or whatever as frivolous or not that deep or not that heavy, when in actuality it is, because you got to look at things on so many different levels. You have to engage the text, and you have to engage the artwork, the visuals.
Yep. So it's a lot more complex than some might have previously thought. Wow. Well, thank you, you know, for explaining that. I think that's definitely worth considering when, you know, we're thinking about choosing books for young readers in classrooms and things like that. And so going to your book, 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy, can you tell us about this book that actually came out in 2018?
13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy. While I was writing I Am Alfonso Jones, I thought, you know what, it'll be great. I'm sick of this whole notion of us pleading for our humanity, about us jumping up and down saying we're human, recognize us. No, I wanted to just depict Black boys in their everyday lives, you know, doing this, doing that, just being regular kids, you know what I mean? And so I thought that would be a stronger statement than saying I'm human. And it kind of after it came out, I started thinking about that famous Langston Hughes poem, Let America Be America. And towards the end of the poem, he talks about, you know, because he was dealing with this whole segregation stuff, like, you know, Black folks couldn't eat in the kitchen, you know, they had to eat in the back, you know, they couldn't eat at the dining table and stuff like that. And he basically, in the poem, he says, not, you know, I'm just paraphrasing, that, you know, they'll see how beautiful he is and how intelligent, and they'll feel ashamed. You feel me? So 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy is about just showing our boys, Black and brown boys, in just their natural states, how beautiful they are, how intelligent they are, how bright they are, how fascinating. And, you know, why would you want to do harm to them? You know?
Right. And it's a shame that you have to even, that any of us, that you as an author, an artist, or anyone would have to say, let me frame this way so that we can be heard, be seen, be respected, be valued, be loved, etc.
It's a book that was in part inspired by, on one hand, Wallace Stevens, who was actually, you know, people thought of him as a racist. His book, he has a poem, a famous poem called 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Bird. And they're like haiku-like poems depicting, you know, a black bird flying, blah, blah, blah. But my ace boon coon one of my literary idols, the great poet and bluesologist Raymond R. Paterson, he had a piece called, and it became a book, 26 Ways of Looking at a Black Man. So I took from that and I said, you know what, let me do my own 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy. And so they're all in Tonka.
Exactly.
And the book has 13 different artists of color illustrating each piece. It's gorgeous. So I figured, you know, I want to do an introduction. And I just started writing an introduction, and the introduction became a poem. And if there's time, I could read it to you if you want.
Yes, I definitely want to. And I'm also going to share the link because people can still purchase
by Penny Candy,
this book.
Penny Candy Books.
Would you prefer the... Okay, Penny Candy
and they're
Books.
Out of Oklahoma, but also out of Savannah, Georgia. You know, 2 publishers in different states. So are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
13 Ways, an introduction. Black boys scrape their knees, they bleed. Black boys cry and scream. They tackle life like air gliding on wind, basking in the breeze. Black boys sit beneath trees, inhale fresh cut grass and dream. Black boys play with building blocks, are fascinated by clocks, cradle skateboards under their arms. Black boys love basketball and books, toss footballs and leaf through pages lost in stories and myths. Black boys love comic books and superheroes, are heroes to little sisters and brothers. Black boys love popcorn and watching movies, love their grandmas and grandpas. Black boys hug and kiss their moms and emulate their dads. Black boys wear their daddy's shoes and ties, smear shaving cream on their smooth faces, giggling in steamy mirrors. Black boys shine bright in sunlight, build snowmen and have snowball fights. Black boys study the stars, looking through telescopes, lie on their backs in tall grass, staring at the blanket of blue sky, at all the eyes smiling and twinkling down on them. Black boys like to hum and drum, bebop, hip-hop, like to dance and sing, jazz and scream. Black boys are 3 dimensions of beauty. Black boys go to church, ride buses, go to school, sit on stoops, fly kites, shoot hoops. Black boys like to sit in their quiet and think about things. Black boys are made of flesh, not clay. Black boys have bones and blood and feelings. Black boys have minds with ideas like bees around the hive. Black boys are alive with wonder and possibility, with hopes and dreams. Black boys be bouquets of tonka, bunched up like flowers. They be paint blotched into a myriad of colors across the canvases of our hearts. We celebrate their preciousness and creativity. We cherish their lives.
Wow. That is absolutely beautiful.
That was
Tony.
totally inspired, that poem.
Wow. Mm. I mean, it's like I need to sit with that. Like that is a whole, I mean, that's a monologue. I mean, that is, it's the opening of a play. It is, wow. Thank you for that, Tony. And you've said it because this falls in line with the conversation. There was an article that came out last year talking about where are the children's books that depict that Black children like the outdoors.
Well,
that
that's
they
the
like
thing.
nature
It's like
too.
we have the creators, we have the a few publishing houses here and there. But let me tell you something. I'm judging right now. I'm at the moment judging a children's poetry book contest, and I'm getting like at least I'm not the only one. It's another poet I'm not going to mention, but I'm getting at least 70 to 75 books by mainly these big publishing houses. And I tell you one thing, they 99.9% of the books that are published for children are published for white kids in mind. And that becomes the heartbreak and the reality.
There.
And you have mostly editors that are white, and they are the gatekeepers.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are acquiring the books and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's really sad because they're basically choosing things that they want, that they can relate to, that they're comfortable with. And
sure.
And so
maybe
it's
things that
hard
they want their
for
kids to read, perhaps. I don't.
Our stories to get out there. A little, yeah, more now than ever they're getting out there, but it's still a Sisyphean struggle. Lifting that boulder up that hill, and it keeps coming back down. It's still going back and forth. After the George Floyd incident and the Black Lives Matter marches that took place over the summer, a little bit of that window opened up, but it's still, a gatekeeper's paradise of whiteness. We still have to constantly battle whiteness, and that's sad.
Mm. Would you say that it is better for, what do you give the most energy to? And maybe that you can only speak to this for your life as an artist. Do you give the most energy to what they're doing or to what you are doing to present a different narrative, to present a different image and representation from the known perception?
That's a really good question. I like that question. There. It's very straightforward, but it's also complex. I give the most energy, and you can see just by my work, to dealing with our point of view, telling our stories. You know what I mean? That's just the way I am. I mean, I even went, I'm at Howard University now. I've been here like, 18 years?
Yes,
the
you
Mecca.
are.
The Mecca. I don't change my tune. If I'm in a predominantly white place, I'm going to tell it like it is. You know what I mean? I'm sure in the past people have paid the ultimate price for that.
Now, would that be?
I was like that with Kenya.
Tony. Now, give it to us straight.
But now. People have paid serious prices for their views, politically, socially, whatever. One of them I could just think of, like Paul Robeson.
Yes.
It's a miracle that someone like Langston Hughes was able to be the only Black writer that can sustain himself on his writing without having to do something other than that to survive,
Well, but did he not have, true indeed, but did he not have...
Oh, he had a lot of hardship.
Well, not to counter what you're
saying.
Mind
you, Langston, he passed away. He was like 65. So, he had to deal with a lot. He had cancer.
Wow.
He had to deal with a lot of racism and stuff like that. I mean, it was a miracle. One time he had a book, right, that he was promoting. And he drove in his car all the way from Harlem to the deep, deep South to Mary Bethune's church. He packed his trunk full of books and stuff and drove by himself from Harlem to the deep South, promoting his work and then drove back. There's a famous picture with him in the church, bum rushed by all these black children and stuff like that. And he's autographing their books or whatever. And I'm just like, how did Langston do that?
Mm-hmm.
How did he stay alive? The Green
But Tony,
Book.
you also know that he did have sponsors. It was that he did have sponsors.
No. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about driving.
What did they call them?
By yourself, being black, and going to the South, and then driving back and surviving. You understand what I'm saying?
And surviving, yes.
That's beyond the sponsors.
By the blood.
That's like,
what did they
whoa.
Say?
The sponsors was like so he could write. You know what I mean? Like, so he could have the time to write and don't have to work and kill himself.
Right. Yeah.
But he didn't always have a sponsor. That's the thing. You know, at one point, his white benefactor, she cut him off. Of course, because she wanted him and Zora Neale to write what she wanted them to write. That's a gatekeeper.
Oh yeah, and I know Zora Neale Hurston said to hell with that.
Oh, she wasn't having that.
Hurston walked away from that a long time
Zora
ago.
did not play. You know, she was her own woman. And I mean, her and Langston had a falling out, but that's another story.
Mm-hmm. True. We could talk all day on that. You know, Zora is my favorite.
Very,
I mean, I really feel she is my...
well, let me tell you something. When you really look at all those Harlem Renaissance artists and their output and what they were doing at that time, they're incredible. Incredible. People need to go back and really examine that period. That was the black arts before the black arts movement. They laid the foundation. They took the sacrifice.
Yeah. And they made a way out of no way. You know, they were having rent parties. You know, somebody used to cook. I won't tell all of that. But they had rent parties. They had their ways. You know, somebody would cook and
they published this magazine called Black Fire, which later Amiri as Leroy Jones and Larry Neal put out an anthology called Black Fire, I guess, you know, to give them a nod. And they paid, that came out of their money. And the black bourgeoisie was like so offended. The black bourgeoisie in Harlem was like, oh, how dare you air out dirty laundry? Oh, those are some times, boy.
Look, but that's what the artist was for, you know. Langston Hughes or Neil Hurston and those, they were the, what do you call it?
They were the young lions.
They were the griots of that time. They were the bloggers.
Oh, they were
at
incredible.
That time.
But you know, white people were fascinated by them. They were fascinated by them. They're like, oh my God, I can't believe Negroes can actually write. I mean, you know, Phyllis Wheatley they had a trial for Phyllis Wheatley when she put out her first poetry book to say, that's impossible. A black person doesn't have a soul. They can't write and think and blah, 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 blah. They had a real trial.
Who was the poet that said to make
I think that was County Cullen,
Who was that? Was that County Cullen or Claude McKay?
Let me tell you, they were very complicated. They were not a monolithic group, mind you. But that is, to me, is a fascinating period. I wish I could if I could go back in time and just be in that space to see that, you know, it would be incredible.
Sure. Wow. Well, you're it for us right now in this generation, Tony, and we're so grateful for your genius and the stories and poetry that you offer us. Because we have a new time, and who knows what they'll call this one.
We only exist because of them. You know, we only exist because of our ancestors and all those folks who took the blows, who took the sacrifice. You know.
That is so true. And let me ask you on that: if Langston Hughes or Zora Neale Hurston and
Claude McKay,
any of the other writers that you mentioned, Claude McKay and County Cullen and all of these geniuses, and should they
Mm-hmm.
have gotten themselves, these are questions I ask myself, should they have gotten
Well, some of them were
themselves a
working. Some of
job, a
them were
teaching
working.
job?
They
Should they
had
have
to work,
gone
of
to higher
course,
ed?
It's not like all of them weren't working. I mean, this is America. This is capitalism. You have to survive. They lived in New York, lived in Harlem. I mean, they lived in a time when, racism was vicious and out in the open, Of course they worked,
Right. But I hear what you're saying. But you look at today, and the Black artists, the Black writer dare not, unless they are just, I mean, we dare not say, I'm
Well,
just
a lot of
going to
us
do
had
my
to run
writing,
into the
unless it's
academy
really
and
already
teach to be
sustaining
able
you to
to
have
do
a...
our thing as artists, I think Langston maybe taught one class. James Baldwin maybe taught one class. James Baldwin taught at Amherst, and one of his students was what's her name, Susan Laurie Parks, the playwright, and she basically says that it was James Baldwin who was reading her fiction. He would have these he would have these classes after class where you had the class in the classroom, and then they all go to the bar and have the real class, right? And he told Susan Laurie Parks, he said to her, look, you're a playwright. That changed her whole life. I mean, she published a novel like 10 years ago or so, but it was him who saw that she was a playwright. You know what I mean?
Yes, indeed. And she does mention, talk about,
and those were the few that went on to teach. Other people had to, what's her name? Was it Jessie Fawcett? No, Nella Larson. She was a nurse. I think she died.
Nella Larson, yeah.
She kind of left the literary scene and was living in Brooklyn, and she basically was working as a nurse for the rest of her life and stuff like that, having published 2 novels that we know of,
Sure.
And one of them, Passing, is coming out shortly as a film.
That's deep.
Yeah.
Nella Larson's. Well, they had
because I mean, in anticipation of the film coming out, I can't wait to see the movie. But these people were, interesting. I just applaud them. I mean, just think about, they came up in Jim Crow era. The racism was really heavy duty.
Yeah.
And to survive, I mean, Langston was very beloved,
Yes, he was. But would you say that the Harlem artist, Harlem was all Black, Tony? Would you say that
no, because a lot of people were also in Harlem
their own community,
and they would trudge up to Harlem because white people trudged up to Harlem because they wanted to be down by law. They wanted to be, in all the cool spaces. I mean, you had all these, all these incredible artists, jazz, painting, writing. It was true Renaissance, and I think that there were white people who basically didn't. They may have been racist, but they didn't know they were racist, and some that just was like, you know what, these are interesting folks. I want to party with them.
They sing. I'm telling you, they sing.
And they
dance,
they had
paint,
sex and all this stuff, and it was just it was an incredible time period.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that history lesson.
I'm just fascinated by certain periods. I mean, the 60s and 70s was incredible too. Don't you know what I mean? But you got to just consider the weight of the Harlem Renaissance, or the new Negro movement, as they said.
Oh yeah. Right. And that was your
Elaine Locke. He was a wild mofo, man. He was in love with Langston.
Yeah.
Obsessed with Langston, basically.
Oh yes, I read all about him.
But Langston was very, very, very private, as you know. His executors or whatever, they keep a tight grip on his sexual life. We don't.
Because people still don't know. Because Langston never
he was known
married,
to be
right?
gay, but it's not really like kind of like it. No one has ever really kind of proved it in a sense. You know what I mean? Oh,
right, because he wasn't known and he wasn't
no, James
out in
Baldwin
the
was
way that, let's say,
very ahead of
James
his time and very
Baldwin
radical.
was.
The thing is this, right? I think that the rift
Yes.
between Langston and Zora was not so much about the play that they did together and she got produced without his permission, but I think a lot of it was that she had the hots for Langston. Yeah.
Do you think?
There was a lot of sexual tension there.
Well, of course they said of course they said Zora Neale Hurston.
Well, you know, Zora used to date men 10, 20 years younger than her, and she never told her age.
No, because
she
Zora
was the original cougar,
you know, much younger. She got into Howard like that. But Zora had marriage proposals. There was a doctor who wanted to marry her, and she said no. She didn't want to live the life as a housewife. She wanted to be a writer, and she didn't want to be. What did you call it?
She was very.
She didn't want to be
she was dynamic.
She didn't want to be put
I'm
in
surprised
a house.
They didn't do a movie of her starring Queen Latifah. Come on, man. Queen Latifah needs to pick up that biography that Valerie Boyd did and say, I want to do this movie and I want to star in it. She looks just like Zora Neale.
Somebody needs to pick. Right. Well, somebody needs to pick it up. Somebody will, I'm sure, because that's a fantastic telling. Because it talks about Langston and the others too.
I gotta tell you, this is a
really
fun conversation for me. This really is. And also, and by the way, another artist that I love so much, and I grew up, my mother loved her as well. And actually, she took me over to East St. Louis. Yeah. Catherine Dunham. Well, you know,
Eugene,
Dr.
Catherine
Eugene
Dunham is in that book,
Redmond.
You know.
And he has a lot to do with keeping Henry Dumas's work out in the world, and Toni Morrison, mind you. And so I give both of them a shout out in the notes part of I Am Alfonso Jones, because, you know, I wanted to like give props to Henry Dumas. Henry Dumas actually appears as a ghost in the story. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, and
you did
they didn't even know who Henry Dumas was. You know, their teacher
Dumas
challenged them to look him up and find out, you know.
Yeah. Well, Professor Redmond, they do that annual event where they pay homage to Dumas.
Let me tell you, Eugene Redmond is a treasure. He's like, his daughter's name is Treasure, actually. She's a poet too and a scholar. But I mean, he's one of the most incredible poets, archivists that we have, you know. You got to read Drum Voices Review. Yeah.
He really is. He's another historian. And let me tell you, that
he
man
don't play.
has hundreds
he
and thousands
does not
of photos
play.
of
He's
all
serious.
the greats, and he's in photos.
He was close to Maya, Catherine Dunham,
Maya
and
Angelou,
Toni Morrison.
You name the names, he's got all of them.
And Dumas, of course. They were buddies. Right. You know, he got him his job teaching.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible.
That is deep,
and you know,
man.
Dumas was tight with Sun Ra.
Oh wow. Was Sun Ra probably
I don't know about that.
From East St. Louis? There's some connection, because you know that's where Eugene Redmond.
Well, Miles Davis was from St. Louis.
Institution with the Writers Collective and all that is based there.
Well, you know, St. Louis is no joke. I guess there's a lot of literary heavyweights come out of there.
It isn't. And Toni, you didn't know that just in the year that she passed, several months prior, I produced an event for her.
I was at her funeral and I spoke about her on NPR.
History Museum, and featured her.
That morning show they have. What do you call it?
Oh, wow.
I think it was Fresh Air.
Fresh Air, not Fresh Air. Was it another one? Okay. Wow. Yeah,
and she wrote about it, and her father was
heavy as well.
He was part of the Black bourgeoisie. He was a doctor, and all the heavyweights Du Bois and all these heavyweights used to roll through there and stuff.
He was a doctor here. Yeah, I have she wrote a children's book on that, where she is depicting many of the famous
black
people that came to her home when she was a child.
Bourgeoisie. And when I say black bourgeoisie, I'm not saying it in a derogatory sense. I'm just talking about the movers and the shakers, the people who were like, in
a negative. I know
they used to house like a lot of these heavyweights,
up there. True. Because if you think about it, where were they during those times? Because
it had to be the black middle class and upper middle class
taking place. If someone like that
housing them and having these engagements. No,
right, because they couldn't
but they all knew each other. It's just like kind of like how when we came up, we were all swept into the movement and knowing people like Sonia and Amiri and Amina and all, you know what I mean? Like that type of vibe.
You naturally find your tribe because you have to find.
And let me tell you something. You will be safe and also the Black poetry world is all about, embracing anybody that's down with the tribe. It's always been like that, and it always will be like that.
Wow. That's deep, man. Tony, you're just a whole treasure trove of knowledge. And I mean, do your students
students take advantage
in class?
Students take you for granted. I'm like the Statue of Liberty to these mofos, and they're like a New Yorker, you know what I mean? Even Nikki Giovanni probably has students that be like, "Oh, she's my professor."
What is it?
Don't know what time it is. One time I did
oh my God,
a thing for Fierce Flower at JMU, and I was and at the end, Nikki Giovanni, I did a reading, and at the end, Nikki Giovanni came up on the dais, and the dais, and we were on a panel thing, right? And then I had a couple of students bum rush me like, "Ooh, let me take a picture with you," because Nikki she was sitting next to me, Nikki Giovanni, so they wanted to take a picture of me afterwards because they didn't know who the fuck I was at that time. Excuse my language.
All right. That's deep. And so do you enjoy your
I don't really
status at the university?
Think of myself in those terms, so I don't really. It's surprising to me that people know who I am and know my work. That always surprises me for some reason. I don't know why. You know what I mean?
Okay.
But I do enjoy sharing with them like a lot of these stories about these poets and stuff. But sometimes it feels like I'm name dropping. But I'm not trying to name drop. I'm just trying to put you down with the reality,
Sure, because they're like, but they know, but they can look at, they know this is history.
I know,
though,
it's
and
weird.
It's a
weird position you put in because on one hand it sounds like you're name dropping. On the other hand, you just want to tell them what the story is. What's happening. What?
Right. Exactly. Okay, so Tony, now let's get back to Death with Occasional Smiling. When can we look forward to this book?
Well, I hope it comes out shortly because it was supposed to come out towards the end of the year. But I guess the publisher just wants to get it right. You know what I mean? It's the publisher.
And who can you name who the publisher is?
Indolent Books out of Brooklyn, New York. And I really like the way the publisher is taking his time and getting it right. You know what I mean? It's beautiful. So hopefully it'll come out soon.
Yeah. So will this book have any illustrative
it's just the cover. This is straight up poetry
like that?
It's in 3 parts.
Okay.
It ends. Well, it has a couple of endings, but one of the main endings is the one that I did that I wrote specifically for Amiri Baraka when he passed, and I was the first speaker at his funeral at the Sarah Vaughan Hall in Newark, running the Voodoo down. I remember I rolled up in there with Sonia Sanchez, Haki Matabuti, and some other folks. We rolled up in there, and the first person we saw going into the Sarah Vaughan Hall was Elizabeth Alexander, who was the inaugural poet for Obama, and she's also, one of the founding members of
Obama.
Kaveh Khanum. And so,
sure. And
Amanda Gorman, she's like a 22-year-old
inaugural
poet.
poet will be, I think.
So I walked in there and she said, "Tony, you're going first." I was like, "What?" I was shocked. I was like, "Hamana." So yeah. But that's good that they're gonna have like a young 22-year-old poet representing and stuff. It's basically towards the future,
Yeah. Exactly. I love that. It's like represent the, upcoming generation. I mean, because many of them voted this time around. Some of them who just came of age. This might have been
young
the first time
poet.
they voted.
I never heard of her stuff. Really cool. I got to check it out. I don't know that. Probably because everybody seems to be Kaveh Khanum these days.
Perhaps. Okay.
But I mean, 22. I'm not sure. Because sometimes it's hard for seasoned veterans to get in there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that is true. That is true. And so, Tony, what is coming up next for you? So I know you always have something in the works. We have Death with Occasional Smiling. People can look forward to that coming up very soon in 2021.
There's some other stuff, but I don't want to talk about it right now. I don't want to jinx it. You know what I'm saying?
That's fine.
But know that I am trying to work on
as the interviewer, I always ask.
Just know that
I'm trying to get all the
writers, authors, whatever, we always trying to work on something, trying to get something out there. It's just, you always got to go hat in hand sometimes, it seems, you know what I mean? But I do have, stuff coming, and stuff that I'm developing. I'm working on an anthology with other folks that goes from the Black arts movement to Black Lives Matter, in terms of poetry. So. Oh no, you're on the list.
Need anyone else? I have tons of poems.
I'm just at the composing my list.
Okay.
Stage.
Well, I hadn't.
Oh no, it's. I just got the word about it.
Well, I hadn't heard
but
nothing, so that's why
it's like I gotta compose my list. I gotta see what the other mofos got on their lists, and we gotta put our list together. And we don't have that many pages to go with, so we're gonna figure it out how we're gonna do this. Maybe like Bum Rush the Page, where you had like. We managed to squeeze in so many people in that book. Even June Jordan was in there. I was like,
look,
oh my God.
You had all the folks in that book, okay? Everybody and their mama was in that book.
You're not in there?
Except I was still a baby poet at that time. No, I was still.
Really?
I was taking workshops with Louis.
Well, Louis is always famous for he was doing getting his students.
I used to go to him at Sister's Place on Saturday. No, you know what? I was really
so
quiet
you knew
really
Louis
shy
That's
at
so
that
cool,
time.
man.
I think I wasn't with it, Tony. I was just. I knew. He advised me on before I published my first book. He's the one that told me print out and lay out all of your poems and get a theme together. And he said the poems that don't fit in that one theme that you want for your collection, he said you leave those out, and that can be in your next book. He did. If I ever write about, my life and the arts or whatever,
he was great. He used to travel all the way from Brooklyn to my house so that we could work on the Bum Rush the Page anthology. And mind you, the house that he lived in was the house that his father-in-law left him and his wife. And you know who his father-in-law was, right?
His wife. Uh-huh.
John Oliver Killings.
I don't know who his father-in-law was.
And the time that I spent with Lewis sitting in my
what? Stop it.
brown wing chair, which I still have. I've had this wing chair for like 30 years. He would regale me with stories on how he met his wife. And guess who introduced him to his wife, Barbara Killings Rivera? No, sirree, Bobcat Tail. It was
Dr.
none other than
Nikki
Giovanni,
her
college roommate at Fisk.
What? Her college roommate? Them. Oh my!
So you see what I'm telling you? I get all the good tea. I get the good tea. I get the good tea. I get the good tea. First-hand tea.
Good literary tea right now. Oh.
And John Oliver Killings used to teach at
wow,
Medgar Evers,
that's
he used to
amazing.
Hold court at Medgar Evers College.
Yes, because
and all these writers from the community would come rush his class.
I remember when they
weren't even part of the damn college, right? And they would and he said, "Let them stay."
No, they weren't.
And when I came to Howard, that's exactly what I did too. Yes, and they were sitting on the floor. There was no room.
You said, "Let them stay," huh? Now, did you take class with Sonia Sanchez at Howard?
No, I didn't go to Howard.
She has a lot of Howard
Sonia was visiting, and Haki was visiting. I was the first one that was on a tenure track as a poet, you know, and now I'm a full professor.
Oh, wow.
So those were like visiting like a semester or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
When Haki was visiting, they used to fly him in every week from Chicago.
Got you.
Yeah. Shoot. They don't
Chicago. Play. Right. That's
but
amazing.
I think the visitings were
the Mecca.
Haki, Sonia, and then me, and then they created a line for me. I mean, they invited me to Howard specifically to teach creative writing. I didn't go looking for the job. Basically,
I know you. I remember you told me.
Well, they called me in the middle of the PhD, basically, when they found out I was doing the PhD.
Calling you.
And I said, okay.
Oh. Okay.
You know, I could use a job, huh?
Right. How lucky. So you have no idea.
But I know the struggle and strife of working. But I mean, I just happened to be, I was prepared, basically. You know what I mean? I did the groundwork. I went to school, and then when they realized, hey, I want Medina, you know, Dr. Ellen Trailer. So it was just, preparation and hard work and luck. That's what equals luck, they say, I think. Yes.
Preparation meeting opportunity. Yes. You were
so this book is going to have a lot. This Death with Beginner's Mind. Wow. It's going to have a lot of stuff.
Well, Tony,
I don't know. People kept asking me that,
so
especially
when
recently.
When is your memoirs coming out?
When I wrote a tribute to Miguel Algarin, who passed away recently,
give us the memoirs,
founder of the New York Poets Cafe and movement. And I just wrote all this stuff, and I was like, wow. When you start thinking about it, you see all your connections, you know, all the 60 degrees of separation and stuff. It's like phenomenal.
Yeah. Truly, it's a small world, and this world.
Well, back in the day, it was even smaller.
You were talking about is a small world. You know,
imagine the '60s was smaller than this world, and then the Harlem Renaissance was even smaller, and everybody was in the same. Everybody went to the same place. Can you imagine?
You know,
it wasn't like that in the Black arts. Everybody was spread out.
And now we're all spread out.
But for the most part, the major players were all located in Harlem, except for, let's say, Sterling Brown and some other people. You know what I mean? And Locke.
Right. And then you had the era with Gwendolyn Brooks, and you you have Rita
Chicago
Dove,
has a
and you
big
have
heavy
Ricky
scene. I mean,
Giovanni, and
all
they're
the
kind of
major
like
cities basically have
Chicago
heavy
DMV.
scenes, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And do you have a
Of
connection with any
course.
Bay Area, Bay Area,
Of course,
LA,
yeah.
any poets, writers,
I
artists
mean,
out?
Quincy Troop came out of the whole and Quincy Troop and Jane Cortez, they all came out of that whole Bay Area scene.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
Compton and stuff like that, huh?
And Quincy Troop has the St. Louis connection.
He's from St. Louis.
Right. Quincy
His
Troop
father
has
was a
St. Louis
major freaking baseball player in the Negro Leagues.
And yeah.
And Quincy Troop did the biography, the autobiography of Miles Davis, which is St. Louis, St. Louis.
They're supposed to, and they're supposed to be in the works
there's
with
been
a
a
movie
documentary
on that, I
and there's
think,
been
or
other
another
stuff. So,
type of.
But Ishmael has been in the Bay Area for the longest.
Interesting.
Even though he made his literary bones mainly in New York,
Mumbo Jumbo,
when he first started out, but he comes out of upstate New York. He's responsible for he's the one who basically got Lucille Clifton published for the first time. Yeah, he took her work and got it published and stuff. She went to school with Amiri. She went to school with Toni Morrison.
Mm-hmm. Now, did she ever teach at Howard or somewhere
in Maryland?
Around there.
St. Mary's or something like that. St. Mary's College, something like I did a reading in a workshop over there. I vaguely remember college, that. Yeah. After she passed.
Mm-hmm.
In Maryland somewhere, but she also lived in Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
Her children recently repurchased a house that they had to move out of
Columbia, Maryland,
and it's going to be a literary place, for writers and stuff. A retreat. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's nice. It's
when this,
already.
I guess, all opens up
Google
again.
Search has already been purchased, but it's the house that they grew up in. It's the house that she had these heavyweight literary parties and stuff like that. Yeah, it's a beautiful house.
Oh, wow.
And they were in a position to be able to repurchase it and make it into like some type of writer's retreat or institution for Black writers.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds very nice. Yeah. It's so needed. And so, Tony, what do you think, Black writers and poets need to be focused on now? Is there a need for, first off, more publishing geared toward Black, Latinx, children of color, and more commentary?
I just think that they got to do what they got to do
that
as
are
artists,
going on right now.
I can't dictate what somebody does. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own way of, their way of doing things and what they want to do with their work. It used to be a time in the 60s and 70s where they used to say, you got to do this, you got to do that. But that was a dead end road, and those days are over. You know what I mean? You don't really have to tell writers of color what to do. They just see something and they respond to it, or they just, you know what I mean? Their imagination leads them where it needs to go. And the bases will be covered. All the bases will be covered eventually. Just let folks do what they got to do. I mean, one time I had a student who graduated, a Howard student who graduated. This was over 10 years ago. And she just freaked out, and she would call me up and be like, I don't know, Medina, I don't know what to write about. I don't know what to write about. I said, well, I mean, you're like 20 something years old. You have a whole history, you have experiences. Write about your life story or whatever, you know, things. I can't tell you what to write about. You know what I mean? I don't even feel comfortable telling people to write the things that I want them to write, because I'm me, you know, I'm an individual and a certain person. I don't want little clones of me, you know?
Okay, got you. But do you see a gap at all? Maybe that would be a better question.
There's always a
Is there
gap. There's always going to be a gap.
today's-
What I don't like is when people come up and they're younger and they don't understand the tradition, or they don't care to understand the tradition. And to me, it's a form of disrespect, you know. Know who comes before you, respect that, and keep it moving and stuff like that. That's the only pet peeve I would have. And I don't see that often, but it does happen.
Yeah. And I get what you're saying on that. I remember when I was on the poetry scene in New York early on, and, you know, a poet got up on the mic and someone asked him a question about, you know, Sonia Sanchez and different writers, or we were having a conversation, and this poet goes, look, I'm me. I don't want to read those works because I don't want to sound like them, and I don't need to know. And people were really offended because the person got on the
came
mic
up with cats
and
that were
said
like
they
that
don't
the same way
basically
back in the
care
day.
about
They
who
came up,
came
they were
before
saying the
them.
same stuff. They were espousing that same thing. It's just a form of ignorance, and it's a form of immaturity. And one day they're gonna wake up and realize, oh, I do have to read this stuff, you know, because you didn't invent the freaking wheel, you know.
I'm telling you.
But they, you know, you can't operate in ignorance. You know, it just doesn't work. I remember when Spike Lee was on the set doing his films, and Matty Rich, he was a young Black filmmaker. He did Straight Outta Brooklyn, which was off of the album Straight Outta Compton. The title, you know, was just a pun off of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he used to brag about, oh, I'm self-taught, you know, I didn't go to NYU and I didn't do this, you know. It was like a little shade towards Spike Lee, who came out of NYU film school. And Spike Lee used to, you know, get back at him in the press and say, look, dude, you ain't gonna go that far if you don't study shit, and you can't be bragging about being ignorant. And lo and behold, you don't see any shit from your boy Matty Rich. You feel me? Yeah, so you don't brag about being ignorant. You know, that's silly.
No,
that's stupid.
Like,
that's immature.
What happened to him?
Do your homework. Do your research.
Wow.
And that's in any form. It's not just in writing. It's not just in poetry or fiction. It's in music. It's in everything. You don't want to insult somebody like Dionne Warwick, and you just get on the set and you think that you invented the wheel and she's right here next to you. Get the, you know, come on. So yeah, it's a sign of immaturity. That's all it is. And insecurity.
It's so true.
They'll learn.
And insecurity. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I met many writers like that in New York in the early 2000s.
Well, you know, Michael
and
Harper
it was
has
like,
this,
dude, what are y'all doing?
You know, this famous poem. It's a very short poem. I can't say it word for word, but it's something about he's talking about Miles Davis, right? And then the cat that he's talking to is saying that he rose above Miles. And then Harper ends with, I left him there.
Whoa.
He said, I left him there.
I guess you did, because lightning is about to strike him.
You know, like that arrogance, you know, that
I left him there.
It's just silly. It's silly stuff. But that poem, I always think about that poem and say, oh, that's what Harper was talking about.
Very. And like you said,
he said, yeah, I rose above.
I left him right there.
I'm not saying it the way he wrote it, but it's like, he said, I left him there.
I left him there.
That is
That's
a funny,
cool.
funny
And
line.
that's what
man.
it is. And that's exactly what it is. That's funny. So Tony, how can we support you? How can people find you?
I'm on
Follow you,
Facebook. I'm on
and
Twitter.
support your work.
You know, you can easily find me if you did a Google search. But instead of saying all that commercial stuff, I'll just hit you off with the last poem.
Ooh,
this one is called.
Yes, let's do that. Thank you so much.
Yes. And it's also in my anthology.
And is this from Death
Resisting
with
Arrest
Smiling?
Poems to Stretch the Sky by Jacar Press out of North Carolina. It deals with all police brutality, but this is also in Death with Occasional Smiling. Indolent Books. From the crushed voice box of Freddie Gray. I am the magic Negro, the black Houdini who done it to himself. I handcuffed my own damn self. I threw myself in the back of the patrol car, my hands shackled behind my back, slave ship cargo ago. I am the magic Negro, the black Houdini who done it, does it to self, in black self. See my no hands. I snatched the pistol from the white man's mind, from the back of the patrol car. Suck on this, Houdini. I grabs the gun and shoot myself in the chest, neo-colonial style. The autopsy report says, damn, would have been easier to walk on water. I bet you a quarter he did. I am the magic Negro, spineless. I broke my own spine after hog-tying myself into a pretzel. Even Houdini who done it would envy, only to turn myself into a human pinball rallying around the steel gullet of a Negro pickup truck once reserved for newly arrived potato famine New York Irish drunks down on their luck. Me, moi, it is I who was Othello. Oh, hell no. Yes, me, the magic Negro, the black Houdini who done it, does it all the time to himself, his own damned self.
Wow.
I mean,
fire,
is there a little bit more
fire.
time?
Yes, of course there is.
I just want to kick it
for another
This
hour.
is the poem that sets off the collection.
I'm chilling.
It's called Dame un traguito.
Okay.
Translated, that means give me a little shot, like a little rum, a little.
And what does that
give me
mean,
a little shot?
Tony?
You know what I mean? A little whiskey. And this is for the poet.
Give me a little something.
Tato Laviera, who I wrote this coming off his funeral. He was a major Nuyorican poet. Yes.
Oh, Tato, he wrote the book America.
OMG.
American.
Well, he was a major Nuyorican poet,
Tony,
and he was a black Boricua.
That's
and
part of my
I went to his funeral with the poet Shaggy Flores, and I was just so lit up that I wrote this poem. It's called Dame un traguito. Give me a little shot.
Wow.
It is clear to see that Jesus was a conguero, beating back bongo skins till his palms bled bloodshot, raw-shot red. No need to put an accent over the E to know who he be. Claro que sí. Bam, 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 bam. Cuckoo. That he sang back up boogaloo for Obatala. Swore by the hypnotic effects of bolero, caught in the throat of a rising sun, suddenly sinking. A Tecatos Jones coming down on 110th Street and Lexington Avenue, in the crusty eyelash of El Barrio, that he multiplied one by sending his little cousin Pipo to cop a few bottles from Pepo's Bodega, where he kept a muscatel stash just beneath the alabaster statuette of San Lazaro. In Bustelo can't urn of Doña Chicha's ashes atop the register with the faded Polaroids of his pregnant tia in Ponce, and his songless Theo with the afro the size of Saturn in Sing Sing. Inked up from head to toe, it's plain to see that Jesus spoke in 4/4 time in Huanhuanco, that he tapped his dusty, rusty patent leather zapatos to a rhythm only the children of Africans and Indians understand. Bailando con Yemaya, buscando la claridad, singing El agua limpia todo. Oh, was he born in a manger or Morrisania Hospital? The critics will ask their silly questions like social workers dumb to the reality of the times, but Jesus will pay them no mind. Nor will he adhere to the census takers, giving a side eye to tax collectors. The only numbers he cares about come out in New York or Brooklyn, so he could buy his baby a new pair of shoes, so he could walk on water, dried puddles of old wine or piss, or tap his toes, trying to mimic the sound of dominoes, click, or ring finger slapping against the stiff neck of beer bottle to one sun-baked viejitos in guayabera shirts and Panama hats shouting, Manteca! Con cerveza breath, working his arms and legs into a sweat-drenched rum-stench rumba, furious frenzy, as if despojando, saying to no one and everyone in particular what he begins to hear reverberating, breakdancing, bomba planting plena in his inner ear. Fíjate.
Wow. Wow.
It's
And
a
that is
tribute
a
to him and
tribute
to a lot of I guess to the New Yorker
to Tato
poetry school
Laviera.
of modern technology.
That is wonderful. And did you read that, or did you share
No, I
that
wasn't
for
there.
Miguel Algarin's recent any celebration that
did
they had for him?
Was it good?
I think they did a virtual thing. I think so. I'm not. I just remember I was supposed to interview Nancy Mercado that week, and we had to
just so that
reschedule
your
because
audience
she
know,
was a
a
part of
tecato
organizing that, I think.
That's Puerto Rican street slang for a heroin addict. So when I say a Tecato's Jones coming down, yeah.
Oh, wow. Whoo, Tony, you have just this has been very, very, very enlightening and inspirational. So what else do you want to share about your work? And what do you hope for yourself in 2021? How about
my work, I think, is just, it's kind of varied. It's kind of like what I aspire to, having, a broad range, not only of different, I guess, styles or whatever, but a broad range of subject matter, a broad range of forms to work in. As you can see, I work in poetry for both adults and children and young people. I do children's picture books. I do YA books. I do graphic novels. I edit books. I do fiction. So what I would like is just to maintain health and focus and the energy to create more,
Yes. And that's wonderful, Tony. And I foresee you to continue having all the success and creative productivity that you've been having. And do you have any tidbits of advice for any aspiring writers or people that are along the path, but maybe they've had some
The
stops and
first thing you got to
starts?
do is really
Any
truly
advice or
believe in
motivation for them?
yourself. Don't let, outside forces keep you from doing what you want to do. Surround yourself with the right people, the people that appreciate you and will inspire you and motivate you. Whatever field that you tackle, immerse yourself in that work so that it's that much easier for you to produce it, and also for you to learn about how to do it. Teach yourself how to do these things. Don't just read for pleasure. As a writer, you have to read to learn, like you're studying with the that's what musicians do when they check out people playing or listen to people. That's what actors do when they check out other actors and stuff like that. Other actors are looking at the little things that somebody does in a certain scene or a certain moment with their hands, with the cigarettes, they're studying every little thing that person is bringing to the to the performance, to the character. It's the same with trying to write children's books. It's the same with trying to write poetry books. Immerse yourself in all types of art. Anything that will stimulate you. Always carry a notepad and a pen. Don't rely on modern technology. Write things down. Type things out. Print things multiple times so that you would always have a hard copy just in case you lose your stuff. Email your stuff to yourself. Don't give up. Just because you get rejected, some of the greatest artists have been rejected over and over and over again. You just keep your persistence, realize that there's so many different writers and poets that are published, different styles, different voices. There's room for everyone.
And would you say that if you are a writer of color, a Black writer, that having that thought in the back of your mind that, oh, it's going to be harder for me.
Don't even have that in your head. Don't let that red space in your head.
Work. Is that
you cannot operate from that. That's operating from a defeatist stance,
Right.
Just think about all the great writers that came before you. Think about what Langston had to deal with, what Zora Neale Hurston had to deal with, think about all the challenges they had in that day and age. Now you can publish your own self if people don't, you know what I mean? Like you don't need that. You can put yourself out instantly. So just believe in yourself.
Right.
And your voice and what you have to say and who you write about. I mean, we're in the business of humanity. Humanity is very broad and very complicated. Human beings are just, interesting creatures.
Yeah.
And so there's so much to write about. There's so much to explore.
But do you think that you talked about you can put your own work out there? But you also
I'm not saying stop at just ignore everybody and go publish yourself. I'm just saying just in case you find so many obstacles, know that is a route. But I think that getting the validation from your peers, getting the validation from editors and publishers and stuff like that is really good, because they will be able to vet the work. They will be able to also give you feedback.
Yeah.
Because don't think that everything you're going to write is going to be all gold and all, Yeah. Be able to take criticism, be able to compartmentalize and,
exactly.
Think of criticism as a way of making something better. Sometimes the criticisms could be wrong. You could be right, but don't be stubborn and narrow-minded and difficult.
Right. That's good advice. I think, in other words, there's a fine line between being difficult and narrow-minded.
I mean, there's been times where I was rejected for something.
Vision that you have.
My first response was
to do that without being.
But then when I look at it and think about it, I'm like, oh, that person was right. Thank God, they saved me. They save me the embarrassment, you know.
Wow. Wow, that's deep. And it's nice to hear that too, Tony, from a master like yourself, because that's, letting folks know that, there's still work that can be done. You may be, a
Well, you know, we
master
can get
artist, but you
we
can look
get
at it
lost
from
in our
different points
sauce.
of
You know, we
views and
write
still
something, we
get
create something,
feedback,
and
I
we're like,
guess.
oh, I love it, I love it, I love it. And then somebody says, and we're like, what? You know, so you just gotta be realistic and look at things and make sure, get a consensus. I guess that's why workshops come in hand, but I think sometimes workshops can undermine people sometimes,
Right.
you know, and paralyze them into not relying on their own instincts. You know, like Hemingway used to always talk about having a built-in shit detector. But you have to also have a built-in detector where it says, oh, you know, like the Beat generation used to talk about first thought, best thought. And sometimes that is correct. You know, you just have to have a sense of what you're doing and a sense of yourself, and have a certain amount of courage and security about your work, you know, even post MFA programs or whatever, because a lot of those MFA programs will put the fear of God in people, that they constantly second guess themselves, and I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And I mean, Tony, do you still have like, we talked about finding your tribe and having your tribe, even now, as where you are in such an esteemed place as a writer and, certainly a professor and scholar. Do you still kind of
writer,
pull on the tribe?
every
Do you still
artist
connect to your
always
tribe, I
needs
guess,
feedback.
for
You know, when I was coming up, wet behind the ears, me and my friends used to, and this was before, you know, all these fancy phones and stuff like that, before the internet. We write a poem, and we knew we always stayed up late. We were all like, you know, night owls basically. And you called up your friend and you read it to them. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm reading this. I just wrote this. I want to, you know, I want instant, you know, feedback. You read it out loud, and then, you know, you hear it out loud. And while you're reading it, you see, oh,
feedback.
The rhythm is off here. The rhythm, something's weird over here. Something's not working. And then you also have the other person on the other line listening. So yeah, I think that you never stop having a tribe. you never stop having people to give you some feedback before, you know, you turn it in, because we're all, you know, we all want to make sure we put our best foot forward and stuff like that. Yeah.
Put forward, exactly. And would you say that that's something you would do before you show it to an editor or
Most
someone like
definitely. You
that?
gotta,
In other
like, you
words, you're
know,
like
get the kinks
getting
out,
your
you
own
know,
work vetted before
make
you
sure it's
show it
right.
to the pros, to the people.
Don't just send it naked by yourself. Make sure other people go over it and look at it. And, you know, some people just happen to be married to other writers and stuff, so they'll have a built-in editor, you know what I mean? Like, but some people are not like that. They'll have friends or they'll have associates or whatever. Just make sure.
Exactly.
And don't be shy about sharing your work.
Somebody...
So a lot of people are very shy and fearful of criticism. It just comes with the territory. Everybody is in, like, when you're working on the book, or if you work on the piece and you're trying to publish it, everybody is about making sure it's the best work that it is. And you can't take it too personally, the criticism.
Yeah. Yeah, so true. And that's good advice too. Something to, in other words, don't wear your heart on your
But, you know,
sleeve when it
when you
comes
create
to,
something, you're too close
having
to
to
it.
show your work and take
So
it through
you're not
that
the best
process for
judge.
publishing.
You know, you may have your instincts that you need, but sometimes objective, you know, other eyes are important. But have confidence in your work. That's the thing. You got to have confidence in your work.
For sure. Wow. Mm-hmm. So true. Well, Professor Tony Medina, Dr. Medina, award-winning author Tony Medina, this has been a wonderful afternoon talking with you. I've
Thank
really
you.
learned so
But
much.
you forgot
And
Funky Cold Medina.
every time we talk, it's always a treat anyway. So I just want to, oh, excuse me, and Funky Cold Medina.
Well, thank you for having me on this fabulous new podcast that everybody should
You have
tune
a great
into.
sense of humor.
You not only do you ask really great questions, but you give the subject some room, to flex, to stretch out.
Yes. And I love a flexing subject and to stretch out, and I love that. Thank you for that. Of course, I want you to have that room because this is going to be, education for folks who listen to it. Definitely. It's my honor to talk with you. And thank you so much for taking time. It was fun. Okay. Well, I'll follow up with you on this. Thank you again, Professor Medina, Dr. Medina, Funky Cold Medina, for joining me on Nerdacity today. So I wish you the best with your upcoming book, Death with Occasional
This will be
Smiling, and all the rest of your wonderful books. I think you're now on what? Is this book 25, 26? You're up there. Oh my gosh, 21.
But I do have to.
It just seemed like I was counting and counting. I'm like number 10, number 15.
I want to congratulate you on achieving your PhD and becoming Dr. Fraser. You're not just a poet, but you're Dr. Fraser and professor academician.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, and a radio host, which is great. I'm getting verklempt over here. Verklempt.
Thank you so much. Wow. Now
That's one of my favorite words in life. Verklempt. It's like I'm getting choked up. I'm getting emotional. Verklempt. Yiddish is a fun language,
Is it? Yes. Yes, truly. Wow. Well,
thank you.
Straight from the master himself. I really appreciate you, Tony, and best of success this year.
Thank you,
and beyond.
madame.
And we'll continue to stay in touch, and I will continue to support everything you're doing.
I just want to end with this. How you doing?
Okay. Well, thanks again, and have a great day. Yes. I'm doing.
All righty.
You're so crazy.
Grazie mille.
All right then, Medina.
Bye-bye.
We'll have a good one. And you were just listening to episode 15 with my podcast guest, the award-winning author, professor, scholar, and editor, Dr. Tony Medina. Visit Tony's website at www.tonymedina.org and look out for Tony's forthcoming collection of poetry, Death with Occasional Smiling, published by Indolent Books. Also check out Tony's books for young readers, including 13 Ways of Looking at a Black Boy and his best-selling graphic novel, I Am Alfonso Jones. Visit my website at www.DuEwaworld.com. Support this podcast and future episodes by also visiting anchor.fm/DuEwaFraser/support. Tweet me about this episode and previous episodes at NerdacityPod1 on Twitter, and follow the podcast on Instagram at Nerdacity Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Take care.